So we're going to bring up Edwina Govindsamy from Bailey. Hi, Edwina.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for being with us today. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me. Very excited about this conversation and just hearing Joey talk. All those bits of, wisdom are helpful for, I'm sure, everyone, including us.
Absolutely. And so we're going to hope to do the same thing with our conversation as well. So just a quick intro for the audience. Edwina and her co-founder, Ariel, are the creators behind Bailey Fragrances. And Bailey is committed to actually offering scents that are not negatively impacting your health and carry a line of perfume oils that are coconut oil based. And then they can help to create a soft scent that is not irritating or overpowering. So with that, Edwina, I'd love if you could share your founding story a little bit with the audience and give them a bit of a background around what sparked you and Ariel to really find Bailey and what made you create it.
Yeah, so our story is kind of a funny one. So Ariel and I met in 2015. I had recently graduated university from New Brunswick, and I had moved to Halifax, and my parents had actually moved here a couple years prior. So I didn't know anyone, and being a recent grad, you're always looking, for a new job, looking to make new connections. So my mom had actually, she knew Ariel through work, so she made the introduction for us. And we always say we went on an adult play date because like my mom actually was there during that initial meeting. So that was great. And, my mom really insisted that I do meet Ariel. And I was like, I don't know. And after much resistance, I eventually said yes. And I'm so glad that, we ended up having that initial conversation and meeting because soon after, we did have a lot of common and really hit it off. And we had a lot of similarities. We had a passion for the beauty and fashion space. We wanted to create a business together, but also wanted to create something that was impactful and meaningful. So after that initial meeting, we spent a lot of time brainstorming on what that idea could possibly be. And after a lot of conversations, it was actually over like a couple of years that we brainstormed. Ariel went away, she came back, and nothing really fit. And then out of a random conversation, a fragrance came up, and we didn't really think much of it. And then after diving into the industry and learning more about the strict scent bylaws, especially in the environment we live in, Halifax, as well as Canada, a unique opportunity to kind of change that narrative and do some teaching on clean fragrances and make fragrance an exciting category, again, the same as you would see in skincare and makeup.
I love that. And so something that's really interesting about Bailey as well is that you really focus on female empowerment in all of your messaging and everything that you do. And it really seems to be woven within the fabric of your brand. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, why that's been something that's been so important to you and your company, and what it's really meant to create a brand that lives and breathes its values.
Yeah, of course. That is definitely something that we've done very deliberately into weaving that story and inspiration and empowerment into everything we do. Our company was inspired by, the fiercely strong and ambitious women around us. So from the beginning, during those initial conversations, we didn't know what business we wanted to start, but at the core, we did know that we wanted to create, as mentioned, something that was meaningful and impactful. So personally, what that meant for me was, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur from a very, very young age, but a lot of the companies and the founders that were in the spaces that I was looking to didn't, look like me or have backgrounds like me. And I think that really, prevented me from seeing myself in that space. So trying to use Bailey, or actually using Bailey as a platform to be an example to other women and people who might be thinking entrepreneurship is for them, or even, starting a fragrance company, to see what's possible and hopefully inspiring them to chase their dream and pave their own path is something that's really important. And that's why we put such an emphasis on empowerment and inspiring others.
I love that you even down to the names of the fragrances kind of embody that as well, right? Like brilliance
Yes,
and
100%. those resilient people, all the excellent women and people around us. And yeah, so brilliance, resilience, and excellence are the three cents. So yes, that was of course very deliberate. And that collection is actually called the Girl Power Collection, which is our first collection that we launched. So
love that. And then jumping off of that, you really get this feeling from your followers and just on your page that you've built sort of a community. And I was curious if you had any tips on how you're able to inspire your fans to feel empowered and connected.
Yeah, so I think that sense of community really comes from us connecting the work we do, which is, selling a fragrance, to the values that we try to live and breathe, even in the smallest of way, whether it's using our social and posting an inspirational quote, to being authentic and sharing our story. That's been one of the ways that, we've been able to create this community and empower others. Like I mentioned, some of those values are woven in, and authenticity is one of them. So for us, being authentic as a brand is sharing that story, and hopefully through that, people find inspiration to chase their own dreams.
Love that. And then on top of that, it's a really interesting time for you guys, I would say. Well, in general, fragrance is an extremely experiential sensory buying experience, but you guys have had quite a bit of success online. I do know that you're in some Halifax stores, but you've really done a great job at having a really strong online presence. And so how were you able to recreate or compensate for that sensory experience online? And maybe some ideas or some tactics around how you've been able to make that work for your brand on the e-commerce side of business.
Yeah, so it's funny, when we first launched Bailey, we were solely DTC. But of course, fragrance comes with the obvious challenge where you can't smell it. And although we have strategies in place, we're continuously trying to innovate and trying to make that shopping experience online as seamless as possible. But it's a work in progress. And that is why part of, why we switched to having some retailers, because people are not as comfortable as they are purchasing makeup or skincare online as they are with fragrance. We all kind of went through that shift where, buying clothing online, people were really apprehensive, but now it's kind of something that's a bit normal for people. And I think fragrance will get there, but it's not quite there yet. So that's why being omni-channel is something that's really important for us. But for online, like you said, we have done really well, and we do have things that have worked well for us. One of those things being we offer sample kits. So if people can't find a fragrance or can't decide based on some of the metrics and information that we've provided them, a sample kit is a great option for those people to then, of course, sample all 3 fragrances, but also they have an opportunity to take some of that money that they spent on the sample kit and then apply it to a full-size product. So it takes away some of that risk. Another thing that we've done is also we share a lot of user-generated content. So, it's amazing when you as a brand are telling customers how amazing your product is and describing your product, but user-generated content, peer-to-peer content, is much a stronger story. So we're fortunate where we use Instagram a lot for marketing. So a lot of customers tag us in their purchases. So it's a really valuable way for us to use that content to continue to strengthen our marketing and telling the story of Bailey and the products. And then last tactic or strategy, I would say, is so offering sample kits, user-generated, and just making sure that our information is comprehensive and informative. So, of course, we, like most fragrance brands, we include the scent family. So a lot of people know, the scent family that they prefer or they'd rather stay away from. And then product description. So making sure that we put a lot of thought into our product description. So we make it as intuitive and relatable as possible. So for one of our scents, Resilience, it smells like roses. So instead of getting fancy and trying to say it's like, walking through a wonderful garden of something, so creating a fantasy, which I feel like a lot of fragrance companies do, we're just direct. It smells like a bouquet of flowers, right? It smells like roses. So I think, that it cuts through the clutter, and it makes it a lot more easier for someone to make a purchase decision, just knowing exactly what they're getting.
Absolutely. And I think going back to what Joey was saying, and the same for you guys around that topic of user-generated content and e-com and retail, it all starts with a good product, right? Having a product that people want to take a photo of, that want to interact with and want to engage with. So it really is bigger than just that online strategy. It always boils back to a good product. And so jumping off of that, how has COVID-19 really impacted your business? I'm sure it's impacted all of us. So curious how you guys have been dealing with it.
Yeah. Fortunately, being direct to consumer, a lot of our sales, and focusing on that from the start when we launched, a lot of our sales do come through that channel. And like I mentioned, a lot of our marketing is through social. So in terms of a lot of businesses having to pivot during this time and trying to figure out, how they can leverage a website or social, it's not something that we had to cross, luckily, because we had those systems in place. But something that we did struggle with, and I think many businesses struggled with, was disruption in our supply chain. So for us, a lot of manufacturing facilities were closed, right, for an amount of time. And we get a lot of our bottles and the bottle parts and our packaging from the States. So with a lot of those shutdowns, of course, there was a backlog of inventory that we weren't able to access because it wasn't produced at the time. And then, so the most recently, as things have started to reopen up, you get, the other side of the things, the whole delivery of the products and the inventory that you're waiting for. So postal services are, experiencing such high volumes right now. So then there was this entire wait for, okay, our product is, it's already manufactured. We're getting all the inventory, but now there's another 6-week wait because of such so much volume with that the postal services are dealing with at the time. And then we had events and different pop-ups that we had planned. So that's, of course, as a startup, really important for brand awareness, and for us particularly really important for sampling. But other than that, like I said, I know a lot of people and a lot of businesses making that transition to online and trying to figure out how to be omni-channel was a really big struggle for them. So we were fortunate on that front.
Absolutely. And so from there, I mean, what are your predictions? I mean, now that people have kind of, the ones that were a little bit behind on an omni-channel presence and strategy are moving to that, where do you see the future going for the cosmetics industry? Will brick and mortar be as relevant? It sounds like Joey believes yes. And it's kind of showing as we ease off on lockdown that's the early findings, but I'd love to hear what you would have to say.
Yeah, I wish I could predict the future for everyone. I think that would be very helpful. I think I'm going to echo what Joey said. I agree that I don't think, brick and mortar is going to die and go away. I think it's going to continue to play a role, but I think the role that it plays is going to slightly shift. In the beauty space, particularly, brick and mortar in that in-store experience is so important for product discovery and testing, right? I'm sure a number of us have missed going to Sephora and swatching our arms with 50 different shades of lipsticks and walking out, coated with a cloud of perfume.
Covered, yeah.
So we've all missed that, right? But given the current circumstances and what's to come, consumer behavior is going to shift. And I think that's really going to impact what brick and mortar and retail's role in the whole omni-channel consumer purchase cycle is going to be. So, I think now where consumers are kind of stepping back with spending, a lot of us have either lost jobs or we're on part-time or restricted hours. Most people's spending habits have changed. We're also in and out of stores. We're not, doing a lot of that impulse shopping that we used to do. And that whole experience that we really enjoyed, like Sephora, for example, it's not the same experience that we're going into. And as a result, we're getting more comfortable with shopping online. So I guess in a nutshell, I don't think it's going away, but I do think it's going to continue to play an important role. And I guess time will tell what that role is actually going to be.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Edwina. It was really, really great talking to you. And if there are more questions, anyone can ask them in the discussion chat box and we can kind of get to them later. But Edwina, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Kelly.
Of course.